By show of hands, how many of you here remember an exact moment in your life when your life turned? For the good, bad, not so good. Thank you. I remember the exact moment when my life turned. I was driving past this place called Kalkaji Mandir, a Hindu place of worship in New Delhi. This was somewhere around October of '97. And this thought struck me suddenly, what am I doing here? I should be in the US. So I reached the office, picked up the phone, called my wife, and I said, honey, we are going to the US. On a different day, I will tell you the response I got from the other end. But 2 weeks later, we had sold all our possessions in New Delhi, and we were on a train back to Chennai, our hometown. 6 months of preparation later, here I was on a plane to San Francisco. No job, $12 in my pocket, and no clue if the immigration officer would even let me through the port of entry. 17 glorious, adventurous, thrilling years later, here I am standing in front of you, telling you my story. This one incident from my life taught me something very powerful, very profound, that it is okay to take risks in your life, that it is okay to take risks. Because as they say, no pain, no gain. Right? No pain, no gain. This is just one of the many stories that has made me the person that I am today. One of the many, many stories. The story that has shaped me into the leader that I have become today. I look back at my life, and there are many, many, many such stories. And depending on where I am on the life continuum, there could be several stories all happening all at the same time. But the question is this, with such a rich and colorful life, I'm sure some of you have too, with such a rich and colorful story collection, what do I do with them? For somebody who spends half his waking time in the office as a corporate leader or as an entrepreneur, what use are these stories? Then I realized, what do I do as a leader? My primary job as a leader or as an entrepreneur is to connect with people. That's my only job. To connect with people and to make them see my point of view. To influence them to look at me favorably. That's all I do day in, day out. So if I break it into pieces, connection is all about what? Authenticity. I have to be authentic to my teams, whether it is my team, my peers, my bosses, or my customers. I have to be authentic. They have to know this guy is for real. There is nothing fake about this guy. They have to know I am vulnerable. They have to know that I have been through the very same situations that you have been through. That's what makes them believe me as a leader, makes me worth following. And they have to know that I am relatable, that I am approachable. When they have a problem, they should know they can come to me. That's what makes me relatable. So authenticity, vulnerability, and relatability, components of connection, as I call it. Boom, I have an idea now. What better tool to connect than stories? Because I can throw numbers, charts, facts, figures, and statistics for all day long. But numbers don't connect. Probably they will impress you for that moment. But a moment later, they're gone. But stories stick. Long after you have left my presence, you will carry the story with you. So now, I needed to teach myself how to tell a story. So when I embarked on this journey, the first piece of advice I got is, hey, a story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A beginning, a middle, and an end, what is called the 3-act story structure. As great as this advice was, my confusion was, what do I say in the beginning? What do I say in the middle? What do I say in the end? Right? So I needed to innovate. I needed something more intuitive, something that I could whip up without having to think a whole lot. So I dug a little deeper and came upon this formula which made storytelling an intuitive exercise. I didn't have to remember anything. I didn't even have to take notes. How cool is that? And that's setup, struggle, and a solution. A setup, struggle, solution. A very simple formula. S, S, and S. Let me break it down for you. Setup. It's where I contextualize the story for my audience, no matter the audience you deal with. It could be your team, your boss, your peers, it could be your customers, or any other group of people that you deal with as a corporate leader or as a businessman. Contextualize the story. Bring the audience into your world. Paint the picture for them so they know the world that you lived in when the story was happening. It is your job as the leader, the storyteller, to hook the audience, grab their attention, and keep it with you till the end of your story or speech. And that's what stories do very powerfully, and that's what you do in the setup. So looking back at my story, what was my setup? I said my life changed. I said I was driving. I said I was in New Delhi. I said it was October 97. And I also told you the characters. I said I was there. My wife was there. And so was the immigration officer. So I painted a picture so that you in your mind could recreate the exact ecosystem I was dealing with. I brought you into my world. Stories, the setup is also the place where you contextualize it. Let me tell you this way, just because I am a hammer, everything doesn't have to look like a nail, should it? Just because I have one story, I just cannot throw it at every situation that arises. The stories have to be contextual, especially in a corporate situation. In corporate situations, you are not telling story for a story's sake. You are telling story for certainly making a point. So it has to be very, very contextual. Once you set it up, then you move on to the struggle. Struggle is what I call the crux of the story, the centerpiece, the heart of the story. No struggle, no story. If there is no struggle, what do you think the villain will do? What do you think the hero will do? Nothing. There's no job for any of them. Let me give you some examples. How many of you here have seen the movie Titanic? Almost all of you. How many of you think that Titanic would have been a great movie if the Titanic had not sunk? Almost no one. Why? Because ships sail from port A to port B every single day, don't they? That's what ships do. That's what ships are meant for. So what is great about that? That I have to go see a movie to see a ship go from place A to place B. But this one ship, the mightiest ship on earth, the ship that even God could not have sunk, struck an iceberg, went down under, and that made for a good movie, didn't it? How many of you here have seen Finding Nemo? Many, many of you. How many of you think Finding Nemo would have made a great movie if Nemo did not get lost? Where is the movie? Why? Because fishes swim every day, every single day. Mindlessly, aimlessly, millions of them. right? So why should I go to a movie to see a fish swim? But this one little guy had to get lost. And his daddy had to go looking for him. And that made for a story-worthy moment. Didn't it? How many of you have seen the movie The Godfather? My all-time favorite movies. Thank you. How many of you think Godfather would have made for a great movie if Godfather did not get shot? There is no movie. True? There's no movie. There's no plot. That was the crux of the movie. Because Godfather was shot, Michael, who till then was saying that he won't join the family business, he leaves his ideals, joins the family business, takes revenge on his enemies, and sets up the empire. That made for a good movie. So the struggle is where you bring out the real problem, real issue. As a leader, if you want your team to believe in you, you cannot say, I was born to be a leader, God just dropped me. Nobody's going to believe you. You have to say, I had the struggle. I had to go through it, and because of that, I'm worthy enough to be followed. Yeah? So looking back at my story, what was the struggle? Here I was in a country where I was born, comfortable, great job, driving. I took myself out, came to a different country, which I knew nothing about, and like that was not sufficient, I said, no job, how cool is that? $12 in my pocket. What does $12 buy these days? A meal? And no clue if the immigration officer would even let me through the port of entry, uncertainty and anxiety. So I told you my problems. I'm telling my team, look here, I've been through it. I know what it is like to be on the other side. And because of that, you can now follow me. And from the struggle, I move on to the solution. I contextualized it. I told them what I went through. And now I'm saying, here is how I solved it. Solution is where you bring it all together. The transformation takes place in the solution. The call to action, the learning, the message, all happens in the solution. How did I wrap up my solution? Simply by saying one line. I said, after 17 glorious, thrilling, adventurous years, here I am standing in front of you, telling you my story. And I didn't stop it there. I said, this one incident from my life taught me something very profound. And what was that? That it is okay to take risks in your life. See, when you tell a story in the office in a corporate setup, you're not telling a story for a story's sake. You are saying a story for a specific purpose. You are making a point to your team, your peers, your leaders, and your customers. There's no room for mushy stuff. You are making a point, so you tell a story, and you better say what the story is for. So going back to setup, struggle, solution. How intuitive is that? S, S, and S. You don't have to take notes. Intuitively, you know, you have to contextualize, setup. You have to position the struggle. You cannot sweep them under the carpet. That's what most of us do, especially men. We like to talk about our successes. Anything problematic makes us look weak. And from there, you move on to a solution. So whether you call it a beginning, middle, end, setup, struggle, solution, pity, fear, catharsis, call what you may, the 3-act story structure is evergreen. Hollywood has done a fascinating job of using this technique, the formula, to create movie after movie after movie. The other set of people who have done a fabulous job is the advertising professionals. Even if you watch a 1-minute advertisement, some of them create this setup struggle formula with so much detail and so much attention. Intuitively, you know, boy, I want to buy this product. Intuitively. That's how well they do it. And that's how I taught myself how to tell a story. Thank you.